afternoon, a good evening, whenever, wherever you are listening. Thank you so very much for making me a part of your day. My name is Lee Parr. You might know me as Lego Lee or Lego Lee 329 from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, you name it. I am all over the internet, and this is the Brickology podcast, the study of small plastic bricks. How are you doing today? I sincerely hope you are having just an absolutely great Wednesday. Yes, it is Wednesday. Well, technically it's Tuesday because I'm recording on Tuesday, but I'm uploading on Wednesday. And Wednesday's kind of weird, right? It's Hump Day. I don't post Brickology on Hump Day. I don't. It's always Friday. I've uploaded every single episode. All 14 episodes of Brickology prior to this one have been uploaded on Friday. And I think Friday is the perfect day to do it. You know, movies come out on Fridays, big drops, everything comes out on Fridays. Fridays is a big deal, and it means everyone can listen to the episode over the weekend and have it for the entire work week coming up until I upload another one the next Friday. It's great. I love Friday. Why am I uploading on Wednesday, you may ask? Well, if you listened to Brickology last week, I alluded to that I might be out of town this upcoming weekend. And, well, yes, I am going to be out of town this upcoming weekend. I'm going on an epic journey helping my brother move from one place to another. And we're going to drive like 3,000 miles. It's going to be quite the adventure, if you will. And it's going to be a lot. And I have no idea how my Wi-Fi, reception, all of that jazz is going to be. Maybe I'll have great Wi-Fi the entire time and there was no need for me to upload this episode 2 days early. But I'm guessing just based on the places we're going, we might end up in the middle of nowhere a lot and there could be pretty shoddy reception. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I can continue to upload daily on Instagram. That would be really bad. I have not missed a single day posting on Instagram. The last time I missed a day on Instagram, I believe, was in December of last year. So almost half a year of posting at least once on Instagram, if not multiple times a day. So hopefully my daily Instagram posts will continue, but I just don't think, I'm not confident enough that I would have had enough reception to be able to upload an entire podcast online. So I'm doing it 2 days early. It's kind of like a Thursday night football game in the NFL. First off, do any of you guys get my sports references? I feel like I make a sports reference every other episode or so, and I just don't think Lego fans are super into sports because I mentioned that in my episode about sports, the second episode of Brickology from a few months ago, and that is my least streamed episode of Brickology, so maybe there's not as much crossover, but we're already here, so I'm already going to give you the sports reference for this week. So basically, in the NFL, you normally play a game on Sunday. Obviously, Sunday is, football day. But sometimes you play a game on Thursday. And if you play a game on Thursday, that means you have a short week. So instead of getting a week off from Sunday to Sunday, you only have 4 days off and you play on Thursday. And it means you have kind of a rushed, short week. But then after that Thursday game, that means you don't play until the next Sunday and skipping, the following immediate Sunday. So you have like 10 days off there. That's kind of what's going on with Brickology. You guys are going to have 2 Brickology episodes in 5 days, and there won't be another episode until next Friday, so 9 days from now. Okay, I probably didn't need to explain all of that in so much detail, but I just want to let you guys know what's going on and why there's an episode coming out on Wednesday instead of Friday. And this is episode 15, pretty big landmark for Brickology. Really happy about that. We are in full swing for season 2 of Brickology. It's going so great. My streams are they're doing really well. I'm so happy with how this podcast has been going, and hopefully this upcoming summer is an amazing summer for Brickology. Weekly posts are going to continue, and my alternating pattern of a licensed and then unlicensed theme will continue. So last week was Scooby-Doo, and 2 weeks ago I did the Rock Raiders episode, and in that episode I already announced what this week is: Lego Power Miners, which is kind of, very closely related to the Rock Raiders theme. So without further ado, let's jump into talking about Lego Power Miners. Now, right before I jump in, if you didn't listen to the episode from 2 weeks ago that I already mentioned about Lego Rock Raiders, I would suggest listening to that episode. That episode gives a lot of information just kind of about that theme. I'm definitely going to allude to that theme throughout this episode. So go check out that episode real quick if you haven't already, and obviously, shameless plug to listen to other episodes of this podcast. Now, Rock Raiders came out in the year 1999, and it was the first LEGO theme to really heavily focus in on mining as a form of playability and story. So Rock Raiders is about this group of miners harvesting these crystals. Power Miners is, for all intents and purposes, kind of a spiritual sequel to Rock Raiders, but not really. It actually has no connection story-wise to Rock Raiders. It's just kind of like a spiritual predecessor. Well, Rock Raiders would be a spiritual predecessor to Power Miners. Power Miners, it's like a reboot. It's heavily inspired by Rock Raiders. They are often grouped together, and it came out a full decade later in 2009. Now, Power Miners draws a lot of inspiration from the Rock Raiders theme, but it also mixes up things a pretty good bit. I'll explain the story for Power Miners here in just a second, but I want to talk about the differences between Power Miners and Rock Raiders. So the Rock Raiders theme is set in space on a different planet. It's a group of space people, and they have a spaceship, and they run out of fuel, and they go to this small planet to try and harvest their energy crystals so they can go back home in their spaceship. Power Miners is an Earth-based theme. It is set on Earth. It is not a space theme at all. Rock Raiders, this is pretty understandable because I said it's, a space theme, is more futuristic than Power Miners. Power Miners, for, pun intended, is a more down-to-earth mining-based theme. It's definitely got a more rugged feel. And Brickology describes this as the Power Miners are dressed in blue and gray clothing, and their vehicles are green and orange in some fashion. And it's similar to that of a real-world mining equipment. This is a fundamental difference between the theme Rock Raiders, which is more futuristic. So I think Brickology definitely puts it there pretty well to kind of describe the big differences between the themes. And then one more thing is the reason they're mining. I've already mentioned that the Rock Raiders, they're mining the crystals to power their ship. The Power Miners are actually investigating earthquakes that are happening underground, and the reason those earthquakes and tremors are happening is because rock monsters are consuming the power crystals underground. So there's different motivations for these themes, different settings, but ultimately they're both similar because of their builds. It's a bunch of vehicles and play sets and things of that sort that focus on mining and collecting crystal pieces, and the crystal pieces are pretty much the exact same between the two themes. Additionally, these two themes definitely have some aesthetic differences. I'll mention that later on when we talk about the actual sets of the line, but let's talk about the story of Power Miners here real quick. I've already mentioned a few things about the story, but I'm just going to read off the story description from Brickology. I'm not very good at reading things off like a script, so bear with me. Hopefully I do my best. The theme is set in underground caverns. Like the Rock Raiders theme, and the basic story involves a group of mining specialists called the Power Miners. The team is sent underground to investigate what is causing a series of earthquakes responsible for the devastation of several cities on Earth's surface. While there, the Power Miners discover the energy crystals and the rock monsters. The team decide to attempt to collect and mine the crystals in order to stop the monsters from consuming them and causing more of these rumblings on the surface. That wasn't half bad. I don't think I really messed up too much reading off that description. So that is the basic story of Power Miners. And the second year of Power Miners, the story, it's, they didn't have a longer description on Brickology, but essentially they go deeper into the Earth's core and they find the molten core of Earth, which is lava based, and the whole thing kind of takes a lava turn, and we'll definitely talk about that when we talk about those sets. But before we get to the sets, let's talk about the characters that populate the sets. The Rock Raiders characters all had very stupid and generic names. It was actually one of the first LEGO themes ever to have specifically named characters. Obviously, Power Miners came out a decade later, so this wasn't a new concept for LEGO, but yet again, the characters have very silly names akin to the Rock Raiders characters as well. So, the leader of the bunch, you know him well, his name is Doc. That's it. Then you had Rex, who is the engineer, Duke, who is the mining veteran, and then, personally, my favorite character name, Dr. Brains. Yeah, Dr. Brains. That's the most creative thing the LEGO team came up with. He's the top scientist. Surprise, surprise, a guy named Dr. Brains is a scientist. That's a pretty stupid name, LEGO. You could have done a lot better than that. And then, of course, there's the rock monsters. Now, from Rock Raiders, the rock monsters, there was just one. It was just one very chunky brown rock monster. Power Miners, though, they have a lot more varieties of rock monsters, a lot more color, a lot more playability, and they have have specific names. The smaller rock monsters were actually shorter than minifigures, and they had a cool play feature where their mouth could open up and you could fit one of these crystals inside, so they literally could consume it, as the story tells us that they do. And then the larger rock monsters had an arm that could move, kind of similar to the one from the Rock Raiders theme, but the arm in this one actually had a lever on the back that if you pulled down, it could throw either a rock or a different rock monster or a crystal, you name it. So very cool rock monsters, and they actually have pretty creative names, which is silly considering how dumb the names of the human characters are. LEGO really tried hard to give these rock monsters names. So first up we have Boulder Rocks, who was the green rock monster, Meltrox, who is the red rock monster, Glaciator, probably my favorite name, who is the blue rock monster, Sulphurix is lime green, it's a little bit of a different shade of green from Boulder Rocks, Pyrox, who is orange, Geolix is the big fig version of a lime green rock monster, and then you had Tremorox, who is a red big fig rock monster, and finally we have the Crystal King. Not sure why the king of all of these characters didn't get a specific name, that's a little bit weird, but the Crystal King is lime green. And then for the second series, or second year of Power Miners, we have the lava monsters. So we had Combustix, who was yellow and black, Fyrax, who was orange and black, and Fernrox, who was red and black, and then Eruptor, who was orange and black and was a big fig, very similar to those other ones that we mentioned, and he had these crazy flame pieces coming out of his back. So those are all the characters from the Power Miners line, so it's finally time to dig deep into the Power Miners sets themselves. So the first wave of Power Miners sets was launched in 2009, the winter of 2009, and this was a perfect time for me to have a lot of nostalgia wrapped around this theme, and I think a lot of people my age love this theme. There's just a big love for this theme online, and I think that's because a lot of people, you know, who are now like in their late teens or their early 20s, they grew up with this theme. They were the ideal age for this theme. It's similar to how my brother, who is almost 30 now, he loves Rock Raiders, and he was super excited when I was doing the Rock Raiders episode because he loves the Rock Raiders line, and he was the perfect age to get the Rock Raiders sets in 1999, and I was the perfect age to get these Power Miners sets in 2009. Now the theme lasted 3 waves, so unlike Rock Raiders, which was a one and done theme with only 1 wave of box sets, Power Miners actually got 3 individual waves. Now it kind of teetered off to a bit where each wave got a little bit smaller, which is something we'll talk about later on in this episode, but I do think it's cool that we got 3 whole waves of Power Miners. And very similarly, if you listen to the 10th episode of Brickology on LEGO Atlantis, Power Miners has kind of a similar run to Atlantis. Atlantis had 2 pretty big waves its first year, and then the 3rd year they had 1 final wave where they changed up some story elements. They go to a different location, actually changed the colors and the characters, vehicles and stuff, and then it kind of just ended. That's pretty much what happened with Power Miners as well, and we will talk about that later on in this episode. But it's time to finally jump into talking about the Power Miners sets themselves, the winter 2009 first wave. This first set we're going to talk about here is the $6 31-piece stone chopper. First off, that's almost 20 cents per piece. It's just 1 piece away from being 20 cents per piece. Awful price, however, $6, it's essentially an impulse set, so we're not going to complain too much about that. I have a specific memory of buying this set at Target back in the day, and this is an interesting build. It's a small bike build. It actually does have a wheel at the back and then a plastic wheel at the front, and when you rolled it along, that plastic wheel was attached to 2 saw blade pieces by a Technic axle. So it's like a mining motorcycle. Interesting idea, primarily built out of some very large Technic pieces. It worked pretty well, and I think it was a really, really good small set for this Power Miners line. It included the Duke minifigure and Meltrox, so really solid $6 set. However, for just $2 more, I think things get even better for these small Power Miners sets. For $8 with 67 pieces, we had the Mine Mech that includes my favorite character Dr. Brains and the Boulder Rocks rock monster figure. And this is a small mech build that had a claw arm that had some Bionicle pieces being used, and we will definitely talk about a lot of Bionicle pieces throughout this episode, and a saw on the other arm. And this introduced us to some very cool new parts for the Power Miners line. We have a brand new roll cage piece that's still being used today on lots of different things for added details and on construction vehicles and city sets and things. Very useful and cool piece. And we also got the brand new dynamite piece. I mentioned in my Rock Raiders episode that the dynamite pieces in Rock Raiders were just printed tiles, but LEGO actually molded a dynamite piece for Power Miners specifically, and it has still been used today in other LEGO themes. So very, very cool. And this was a fun little build, nice little mech. Mechs are always fun. Uses those Exoforce Bionicle kind of fusion style ball joint pieces for lots of articulation. A pretty solid little set. However, Power Miners is absolutely killing it with these small sets. For just $2 more, again, we had the $10 91-piece granite grinder that included Duke and Glaciator. This was a small treaded vehicle with a grinding function that again used a Bionicle piece with rubber band. So essentially what this vehicle did is when you ran the treads on the ground, the rubber band would move this piece on the front and move back and forth like it's, drilling or grinding on some rock. Really, really fantastic small mechanism, especially for a small set of this sort. And this set actually had a lot of playability because it included a bucket in the set as well, and that bucket had a chain that you could hook up to the back of the granite grinder so it could actually transport said bucket. This was a great set. This is seriously a fantastic set, and I think this set's an abnormally fantastic deal. I mean, the price per piece is close to perfect, but it had a ton of big pieces like the bucket, the rock monster, the crystals, the big Bionicle piece, the roll cage. I mean, this, I think, is an absolutely fabulous $10 set. LEGO doesn't really make $10 sets this good anymore. Like, this kind of thing would be $20 to $25 these days, but this is such a good small set. I love this set, and I personally think it's one of the better Power Miner sets, even though it's just $10. So that's it for the small Power Miner sets. Now we can get onto the bigger boys. We have the 197 piece $20 set, so almost close to being a perfect price per piece. We have the Claw Digger that included Rex and Sulfurix. This was a big wheeled vehicle that had two claws that could move up and down. There wasn't really a super creative function for these. You simply just twisted on a piece and they would move up and down. It's very, very simple mechanism. LEGO definitely, I think, could have done something more interesting for the mechanism with this set because there are some truly awesome play features with this Power Miners line, and I personally think this one had one of the weaker play features of the bunch. But this set did introduce us to the Power Miners wheels that are still being used on sets today. Some of the new Monkey Kid sets that just came out have these same big wheel parts. They're big, chunky, plastic wheels. Now, I personally don't love plastic wheels because they struggle to roll on hard surfaces, but they did look good and they definitely, kind of helped add to the lore of these Power Miner sets, having these big kind of Tonka truck-esque wheels. These are great pieces. This set, though, it aesthetically looks really good, but I think the functionality is a step below a lot of the other Power Miner sets. But for $30 from this wave, we had the 235-piece Thunder Driller. This set included Doc, Rex, and Fyrox, and this was a giant underground drill. Surprise, surprise, the Thunder Driller is a drill. And yet again, a lot of cool new pieces for this Rock Raiders, Power Miners line. I keep mixing those two up in my head. I definitely messed those up in the Rock Raiders episode as well, and I apologize if I keep doing that. But getting back on track, this set gave us the brand new big drill piece for Power Miners, a super great piece, and it also had those big wheels that we saw in the last set. And usually when there's a big drill on the front of a vehicle in LEGO, it's always a very simple but effective function. You can move the wheels along and the drill would, surprise, surprise, it would drill, which is always great and always super, super fun. And this was a cool vehicle because the drill actually had an interior where you could shovel coals into the vehicle. I thought that was really cool. Really nice little interior. It also had a back section as well. It could fit a number of figures. I mean, there was really a lot of good playability with this set, and I actually remember reviewing this set on my YouTube channel back in 2009 when I first started my YouTube channel, and I wish I had this set built. Of course, I have it destroyed. Great Power Miners set, but kind of surprisingly, this set was voted as the best Power Miner set by my fans on Instagram. I was pretty shocked by this. I think it's a great set, and I understand why a lot of people would love this set, but I was pretty surprised that people loved this set. I thought something bigger than a $30 set would have won the fan vote choice for best Power Miner set, but here we are. This $30 set did win the vote. So that's pretty exciting for this set. Congratulations to the Thunder Driller. It is a great set, and I don't hate this decision by my fans on Instagram, but I was just very, very surprised. Now, for the biggest set from this first winter wave of Power Miners, we have the $70 474 piece. Big oof on the price per piece right there. Not a good PPP. This set is the Crystal Sweeper. It included Dr. Brains, Rex, Glaciator, and Meltrox. The only set from this first line to include multiple rock monsters. It's the biggest vehicle from the first wave, and it's a decent sized vehicle. It has a nice interior bridge that kind of looks like the bridge you would see on like a tanker boat. Very cool tanker ship kind of boat. Cool design for that bridge, and it had a very elaborate play feature, a really great play feature. This thing is called the Crystal Sweeper because it kind of functions like a massive underground mining street sweeper. Essentially what would happen is you could move this vehicle on the ground. It had big treads, and it had this big sweeping kind of saw blade looking mechanism in the front that would pick up the crystals and sweep them underneath the vehicle and put them into the back with a big bucket piece. That's super cool. That's super cool. What a fantastic play feature. And speaking of play features, there's also rock monsters in this set with their own build. This is one of the only rock monster based builds in this entire line. Now granted, it's a very small side build, but the rock monsters did get a catapult in this set. It used the rock pieces from the Rock Raiders line, split in half, and on a catapult, and you could fire both, either or, one or two, didn't matter, but you could fire, you could launch the catapult and launch the rock monsters at the Crystal Sweeper. Kind of a cheesy and silly play feature, sure, but it was fun, and it's kind of nice to see a build for the rock monsters because otherwise they don't get a whole lot of representation in the build department in this line. And finally, for the winter wave, the first wave of Power Miners sets, we had the special edition Toys R Us exclusive set, the Boulder Blaster with 293 pieces, and this set cost $27. I can't think of any other Lego set off the top of my head that had this specific price. It was $26.99. You'd think they just rounded up to $30, and it's very odd to me that this set had such an odd price. And also, another thing that's weird, this is the only Rock Raiders set that has a price per piece less than 10 cents per piece. A lot of these Rock Raiders sets, Power Miners, I keep messing that up, I'm sorry. A lot of these Power Miners sets have pretty bad price per part ratios because there's so many, big pieces in these sets. This one though is the only set from all three waves of Power Miners to be 10 cents per piece. That nice golden rule for Lego sets. It included Rex and Glaciator. It's kind of like a weird snowplow looking vehicle. It had big rubber treads and plows on the front. It honestly looks pretty similar to something you'd see like on a farm or something of that sort. And it had a dynamite launching play feature with flick fire missiles and rubber band. It was kind of like a Gatling gun automatic weapon style firing play feature where you could pull back on a piece, it would launch one missile, and then the magazine would drop down and load up another one. You could launch like 4 or 5 dynamite missiles. Interesting build, interesting play feature, and a pretty cool looking vehicle and a pretty nice special edition set for this winter wave of Rock Raid. Nope. Power Miners, oh my gosh. You guys should just do like a count, like a drinking game. Take a shot every time Lego Lee messes up calling this theme Rock Raiders instead of Power Miners throughout this episode because it's getting too bad. But we're gonna keep chugging along with this theme. We're now in summer of 2009 and we have the first follow-up wave for Power Miners. The $20 set with 168 pieces from this wave is the Crystal King, the only rock monster centered set from the entire line. Also, I still think it's weird that Crystal King didn't have a specific name, but you did get 2 other minifigures in this set. You got Duke. However, this Duke minifigure had a hairpiece instead of a helmet, which was a bit different, and you also had the Rex minifigure as well. Rex was given a backpack in this set that had kind of like a big drill attachment on it that looked pretty cool, so he does have a small build to kind of fight off this Crystal Crystal King. And this build honestly doesn't look all that great. It uses Exoforce pieces to make kind of a mech style build that's obviously supposed to be like, you know, an actual alive rock monster vehicle, and it has a very specialized head mold, but it was kind of skinny. I don't know, something about it just looks really skinny. I would have thought, you know, the king of the rock monsters would be like a chonky boy with lots of, you know, girth to him, you know, lots of rock size, but he was kind of skinny and just looked a little bit awkward and didn't seem like a great threat to the power miners themselves. So honestly, I think this Crystal King is kind of a disappointment, and he uses transparent lime green parts throughout this set. Now for $35 with 221 pieces, another bad price per piece, we had the Rock Wrecker. This set included Rex and Geolix, which is the Big Fig rock monster, which is the cheapest way to get any of these Big Fig rock monsters. And this was a very odd vehicle. It's kind of a chonky vehicle that has an upside down cockpit with a coffee machine on the inside, which is just kind of a funny little detail. And it had 4 big saw blades on the front. And the play feature with this set was so incredible. It was such an interesting mechanism that was very simple, but incredibly effective. Essentially, you could just roll this vehicle on the ground and the saw blades would get enough friction on the ground to start spinning. But the saw blades were kind of slanted, and there was 4 of them, 2 on each side, and the ones on the bottom were slanted enough that it kind of acted as gears for the ones that are on top and made those ones rotate as well. It like didn't look like it should work at first glance because there aren't really any gears or anything, but somehow, some way, LEGO engineered something incredible here. I loved this set. One of my personal favorite Rock Raider sets that I purchased myself. And I loved this set. It also had a net launcher on the top, which I'm not entirely sure what a net launcher was going to accomplish because it came with one of the Big Fig rock monsters that's just a lot bigger than the net launcher piece itself. So that play feature might have been a little misplaced, but you know, I can't, you know, discredit LEGO for including more playability with this set. And I have a fun little story to tell about this set. I actually reviewed this set on my original LEGO Lee page, and you're probably like, what? Original LEGO Lee page? Yes, that is correct. You've heard me correctly. The original LEGO Lee page. Before I had a YouTube channel, I actually had a blog. I made a blog on Blogger for LEGO Lee. This was the summer of 2009. I made my YouTube channel in October of 2009, but I made this blog the summer of 2009, and I did written LEGO reviews, and I was 12. And I didn't know how to write. My reviews were awful. They are so bad. I have no idea if you can still find this blogger anywhere. If you do, I apologize because it's probably the worst thing you'll ever hear in your entire life. The reviews are so awful. I believe I only gained like 12 followers total or something. It was pretty embarrassing. But I did it, and it eventually led to my YouTube channel, which is now, you know, 11 years later, led to this podcast streaming on Spotify. So it all worked out in the end, I'd say so. But just a fun thing, I actually reviewed this set on my blogger 11 years ago. Okay, continuing on with this second wave of Rock Raider sets in the summer of 2009, we have the big boy, the biggest Rock Raider set ever. And I keep calling it Rock Raiders. Oh my goodness. If you guys are doing a drinking game out of this, you're probably dead by now because I just cannot stop messing those up. This is such a disaster. I apologize to anyone listening to this episode of Brickology. I just cannot keep those names straight in my head. I probably should have separated these ones more apart because I just keep messing it up. Power Miners, the biggest Power Miners set was the $100 706 piece, another bad price per piece. We have the Titanium Command Rig. This set included Doc, Dr. Brains, Duke, Glaciator, and Tremorox, the Red Big Fig. And it's a big drill with 8 wheels, and it had a nice little bridge at the back, and it had an absolutely killer play feature yet again. Of course, like you know you'd expect with a big drill LEGO set, you push it along the ground and the drill moves. That's fun, whatever. However, you could literally take the drill and take pretty much the entire vehicle and flip it up, and now it turns into like a tower-based vehicle. It goes from being horizontal to vertical, and now you can drill into the ground. So originally you could drill kind of like at the wall, now you can flip it up and drill into the ground. It's a crazy feat of LEGO engineering to have pretty much this entire vehicle move like that. Such an insane vehicle with a crazy play feature. I wish I had this set. I've considered buying this set many times on eBay over the years, and I really wish I had this particular set. Now for this summer wave, there were a couple of special edition sets as well. For $50 with 259 pieces, that's 19 cents per piece. That's easily the worst deal from this rock Power Miners. Sorry, I can't. Power Miners line. We had the Target exclusive Cave Crusher that included Duke, Rex, and a Tremorox Big Fig. It was a long-wheeled vehicle design with those new big wheel pieces, but the alternate version of the big wheels, which were more circular and didn't point out quite as much. And it kind of reminds me of like a snake or even a caterpillar. That's kind of what this vehicle reminds me of. And it was equipped with 2 saw blades at the front that of course could spin when you push the vehicle along. And it also had a flamethrower, a small but a flamethrower nevertheless at the front as well, which is, a bit different for this line. And it was equipped with a saw catapult. You could launch a saw blade at the back. Not entirely sure what launching a saw blade is going to accomplish. That doesn't really seem like something. I guess maybe it's just for attacking the rock monster. I don't know. Very interesting. I think this vehicle personally is very aesthetically pleasing. I think this Cave Crusher looks really cool, and I remember always wanting to get it, but I was very hesitant to buy it because of the awful price per piece. Slightly better in the price per piece realm is the 637 piece $80 Toys R Us exclusive set, the Underground Mining Station. This set included Rex, Duke, and a Geolix Big Figure, and a weird thing here, Duke comes in this set twice. Legitimately, the Duke minifigure is included with this set twice. Who knows why? Brickology gives their theory that the second figure is just supposed to be, like a different random generic power miner, but for some reason they include the same figure twice in this set, which is super bizarre, and I can't really think of that ever happening in LEGO unless of course it's like an army buildable character. That is so strange. Another strange thing, this is the only playset from 2009 for the Power Miners theme, and it's kind of similar to the Rock Raiders base set as well. It had a small bucket vehicle that could transport the crystals, and the play feature was like a train of events, a sequence of events with conveyor belts and stuff that's pretty off the chain. You have a giant wheel, one of those big Technic wheel pieces at the back, which you could twist that wheel and it acted as a pulley system where essentially you could pull up a little bucket full of crystals from point A to point B on this base, drop off those crystals into like a chute, and then they go into the chute and go into the back of the small bucket vehicle. A lot of times it would go too fast and they would bounce out of the vehicle, which is definitely unfortunate, but it was a very well thought out and cool play feature overall. Great playability with this particular set. And the other side had a small little command tower with a dynamite launcher similar to the Boulder Blaster set, but this one you just had to flick the missiles yourself. There was no special mechanism there. Pretty cool set. Definitely a set that I wish I had got. And I think these underground sets lend themselves pretty well to play sets, but play sets are kind of hard to come by with Rock Raiders and Power Miners respective themes, so that is pretty interesting. Now we can move on to talking about year 2 for LEGO Power Miners. As I mentioned earlier in the story segment of today's episode, year 2, well, there's only 4 sets. Basically, similar to Atlantis, I mentioned how it kind of changed direction in year 2. There's a small final wave. It's a different location, different costumes for your characters. The vehicle's color schemes were mixed up a bit. The same thing happens with Power Miners. And basically, the continuation of the story for Power Miners is the miners go deeper into Earth's core, and they reach Earth's molten core, and they are fighting lava rock monsters, and the vehicles are now equipped to fight fire while also mining. So a little different and interesting. I think it was kind of a cool direction, and the figures are way cooler in this line. They are given this crazy heat resistant armor that's all in gray and metallic silver, and it had some great visor pieces and truly looked spectacular. I loved the figures from this wave of Power Miners set. The vehicles, they still kept kept up the same color scheme with the lime green, but they replaced the orange with blue. And I don't think the lime green and blue mix quite as well as the orange and blue. Not the lime green and orange did. So not great on the color scheme department. And now we can talk about the 4 sets we got from this final wave of Power Miner sets. For $10 and 67 pieces, we had the Fire Blaster. It included Combustix and Rex, a small wheeled vehicle with sideways roll cage as its cockpit, which is pretty cool. Had a large water tank at the back, and you also had a flick fire missile that could fire a stick of dynamite, but there was no real mechanism with this set. This was not a very good small vehicle set, especially compared to the Granite Grinder from just a year prior. Not a great set in my humble opinion. A little bit better is the $20 183 piece set, the Magma Mech. This set included Rex and Phi-Rex. It's a big mech build, a good bit bigger than the Mine Mech that we got the year before, and it had 2 big arms. One arm had a claw with a very cool function. It used Technic pieces and it could kind of extend out. It was a really cool claw. You could grab the fire rock monster. It was very cool. The other one had the drill piece, but in blue, and it was supposed to represent a bigger water cannon. But again, no real mechanism here to fire water or anything. It was just all for looks, and it had some tubes that attached to the back with big water tanks. The cockpit of this mech though looked very cool. It used those aforementioned kind of metallic silver pieces, even used some treads in metallic silver for some added greeble details, and I thought that this one aesthetically was a very good build. Overall, the playability I think could have been better. I think the capabilities with the play features here just weren't amazing, but it was a pretty cool looking set. For $35 with 259 pieces, we have the Claw Catcher, which includes Dr. Brains, my favorite character, and Infernox. It's a big wheeled vehicle with a strange cockpit that used like the dinosaur tail pieces as the roll cage. Very weird cockpit build, but this set had a great play feature. So unlike those last 2 sets that didn't have great mechanisms, this one kind of harkens back to the year 1 Rock Raid Power Miner set, sorry, yet again, where it had a very, very cool play feature. You know, it's called the Claw Catcher. It has this big claw on the front, and you could pull a thing on the back. The claw could grab a rock monster, flip it back, and drop it into a prison cell cage in the back of the vehicle. So cool. What a fantastic play feature, and I think this is one of the better sets from this second year for Power Miners. And finally, the last Power Miner set we have to talk about is the iconic Lavatraz. It was $50, 381 pieces. It included Doc, Duke, Phi-Rex, and the Eruptor Big Fig with exclusive flame pieces on his back that have never been reused to this day. It's the second Power Miners playset, and it included a small little bucket vehicle with a water cannon. And obviously the name Lavatraz is a play on Alcatraz prison, which is in San Francisco, and this was a prison for the lava monsters. And of course, every time there's some kind of prison in a Lego set, there has to be an escape play feature, and it's always activated in a similar way. This set, you just push down on a tile and it breaks off one of the walls of the prison. It was a very simple mechanism. A better mechanism in this set though is it had a pretty cool crane that was like a side build. The crane could actually move from side to side on the top of the build. It could actually pick up the lava monsters, the small one and the big one, and transport them from, the outside the prison into the inside of this jail build. That was a pretty cool thing. You could fit a minifigure in there as well. It used rubber bands and some bionicle pieces. That was a great play feature with this set. I really liked that. Outside of the base, again with the bionicle pieces, they used the Glatorian launcher to fire water balls, which were the Zammer sphere pieces from Bionicle. And, I like that they actually attempted to have some kind of firing mechanism that, kind of simulated firing water. That was a good attempt. I can't fault them for this play feature. Then there's a small platform that had a ladder you could go up to, and the platform was equipped with a soda machine. I've mentioned a few times throughout this episode that there's some weird food-based stuff throughout Power Miners, and lots of Power Miner sets had bananas and, things to eat, which I always found kind of strange. This one had a soda machine that actually worked. You could put a $100 bill Lego piece and push on a thing, and it would actually have a soda drop down. It was great. It was great. It was so good. It had a working mechanism. It was small, not super aesthetically pleasing, but it actually worked so well. It just felt super out of place though with the rest of this build. It would have been much better in like a city set or something, but it was still a cool build. But as you might have noticed, this whole set is just a hodgepodge of things. It had so many colors because it tried to represent, like the lavery floors. It had lots of browns and reds along with the typical rock with Power Miners colors of grays and greens and blues. There was too many colors with this set. It was kind of a flimsy build. They could have done way more with the base. So my hot take is this set kind of sucked. It actually wasn't a very good set. I remember buying it and being super hyped to build it and then being very let down that the quality of build just wasn't all that good. But that's it, y'all. Besides some random polybags that I don't really think I need to focus on here today, those are all the Lego Power Miners sets. I sincerely apologize for just the weird quality of this episode. My throat is a bit scratchy today, so my voice doesn't sound, as smooth as it normally does. That is why. And I also just lost the ability to speak and said Rock Raiders so many times throughout this episode. I really hope you didn't play that drinking game that I suggested. Also, if you're under 21, don't drink. It's illegal. So, but don't drink in general, guys. Don't do drinking games. That's a bad idea. I need to be a better influence for my listeners. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Brickology, the special Wednesday edition of Brickology. I will be returning with a licensed theme next Friday, so a little 9-day gap between episodes of Brickology for you guys. And these Power Miner sets, man, there's some weird ones here and there, but for the most part, they were really good. I would love to see this theme return, mainly because this theme had some of the greatest play features in LEGO history. So many cool things to do with these sets. They just had great playability overall. So thank you guys so much for listening. Find me online. I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. A small donation, like $1, helps to making podcasts like the one you just listened to, and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.